Actually, cooking up your pranti is really not that complicated as long as you use a few key tips and tricks. So I've got a heavy cast iron skillet, right? It doesn't have to be anything special. It could be an Indian tawa, which is great if you have it. If you don't, this is just super basic and very easy. And I'm warming it up. It's nice and hot. I'm just touching it. The only way you're gonna touch it and not get burned is you make sure your fingers and your hands are very dry. And we're just gonna quickly, it feels really nice and hot. And I'm gonna grab my rolled out paranti. And I'm gonna let it sit for just a few seconds, pretty much under a minute. And this is my own personal trick. I'm sure I've learned it from masters before, but I just don't really remember anyone really teaching me this. But it is the way I like to start my rotis and my prantis. So you see how it's kind of cooking, but you don't want it cooked through. You want to turn it and flip it just before that, just shy of it actually cooking. So it starts to really create a little bit of a base on that one side, but it's not really cooked, and that's okay. That's where we want it. So that initial turn comes super early, and then I let this next side cook. You don't want the tawa too hot. You want it just right, like a medium. It's probably a little high right now as I was trying to warm it up. Like a medium high would be perfect. And then you just kind of want to start working with it. Flip it back over. You see how it's starting to cook, but it's still raw in these little areas, and that's okay. Now, if I got it a little thinner, because this already feels a little bit thick, and that's fine too. There's different types of paranthas. Also, depending on which household you're in. I mean, my mother-in-law cooks very thick ones. My mom cooks very thin ones, so it just depends. So the thinner it is, the faster it's actually gonna cook. That's something else to think about. You can also, for a parantha at this point, take a little bowl of oil and just take the back of a spoon and you can just spread it a little bit, and then you're gonna flip it over and then cook that and put a little oil there too, or ghee. We're not gonna do that. These are just gonna be nice and dry. The key is then you take a clean cloth or a paper towel and you just press down on it to kind of cook it through. It's really interesting too. It's kind of counterintuitive. The more you press down in certain areas, the more they'll start to puff up. But this is kind of a filled, whoops, let's see that pulled apart a little bit, that's okay. This is a filled pranti, meaning the dough was processed with avocado. So it's not gonna puff up like a roti, which is just really, it's gluten, right? So it's wheat and water, that's it. So this has something else in it, so that's why it's a little bit heavier, a little thicker, and oh, so incredibly delicious. What I would do is, just before it completely cooks through, if you're not gonna eat it right away, I would actually just stop the process, put it on a plate, let it cool. You're gonna let them cool without stacking them first, and then you can stack them and store them, because then you can reheat them. And I'm just gonna leave this here on my counter. My counter's super clean. It's stainless steel, so it's not a problem. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and keep cooking all of these until I'm done with them. And then I'm gonna cool them without stacking them, and then I'll stack them and store them. Or if you wanted, cook them through and just serve them right away. These are your beautiful avocado prantis. Yummy!